That's going to take a while to get used to that window,
yes.
but okay. Call the meeting of the Administrative Services Committee to order for May 3rd. It is about 8:32 a.m. Roll call: Terry.
Here.
Dan.
Here.
Teresa.
Here.
Matt. Here. And I'm here. We have two missing in action, but we have a quorum. Can I have a motion to approve the
Second.
April 5th Administrative Services meeting minutes? I got a motion by Pam and a second by Teresa, or Terry, excuse me.
That's okay.
All right. Any changes or corrections? Not seeing any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The minutes are approved. Anybody on public comment?
No public comment, sir.
Okay, so we'll move past public comment. Any member comments? Don't all speak at once? Okay. There's no presentation or new business, which are routine consent agenda. There are 3 items on it. Anybody want anything pulled off?
Well, I suppose what I'm talking about yesterday. 7-3.
7-3, okay.
Then I'll make a motion to approve the routine consent agenda, including items 7.1, 7.2.
Is there a second? And roll call, Terry?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Okay, so then can I have a motion to approve 7.3 and then we'll talk about it?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Teresa, seconded by Pam. Go ahead, you have the floor.
So I want to thank everybody I talked to about this already, but I thought I'll give it some public comment as well. So the added responsibilities that are being given to the Director of Purchasing so that he will now become the Director of Procurement and Professional Services, it's just a movement, where I'll reiterate basically what I was hearing from yesterday, a giving of there's time and talent that can be utilized in moving the additional duties over to his position, correct?
Yeah, I think that's correct. There's expansion of the role, which creates a title change, but it also adds to new responsibilities to the organization that have fallen on us over the past several years, are now being focused in and falling under this position. So it does expand that role and responsibility.
And then there was a slight movement in the organizational chart from direct purchasing used to report directly to the CFO, but now reporting directly to the deputy administrator, you, right?
Yeah, that is correct.
So, and you did not, that doesn't seem to be an undue task for your schedule.
I'm happy to take on that responsibility.
And also you're saying that the talents that are brought in the skill set does directly reason why this position is getting these roles. That so for instance, fiber.
Go ahead. I just have.
Yeah. So for instance, one of the things being given is that the project looking over how we're going to get fiber through the county. Some I think, oh, that's like a more of a town borough's job, but really, Mr. LaTondra has a skill set that will help him directly.
Yeah, for the past year and a half, really, almost 2 years now, Adam has worked alongside of me and Tom Sullivan. But Adam's really been running point in all of our relationships with HR Green to design the fiber path.
Yeah.
And to work with multiple private providers to try and position us. He's been there. He has been the point person. So I think in some ways we're kind of acknowledging what has been, and it is because not only his role as purchasing, but his past experiences with multiple municipalities.
Yes, I finished. Yeah.
Okay, and so while I have no problems with this whatsoever and commend you for recognizing people's talents and putting them where they need to be, my concern is are we doing this because of the person who fills that position, or is this something that as we look to the future we're going to see that this is the structure that remains in place? I always get nervous when we do it. Again, I like the fact we recognize skill sets, but I always get nervous when we change the entire organizational structure because of one individual. So reassure me and tell me that that's not what we're doing.
It's a fair question. No, that's not what we're doing. It's an organizational change, which I think is going to set up, the county organization and its structure to really accommodate and adapt even as we grow further into the future. So we're creating this position, which is expanding a very focused role, Director of Purchasing, giving it a more broader application to the organization. We're fortunate that we have an individual that can fill that role, but what we're doing is we're setting up a position that, if that person wasn't there, we would find somebody with a skill set that can fill it. I think
And does that meet kind of our conversations that we've been having, ad infinitum about finding decent talent and being able to keep them here and paying them what they deserve? Does this kind of reshuffling accommodate that goal?
Yeah, this opportunity aligns with the county's strategic goal, exactly as you stated.
Thanks.
Questions, comments? Okay, roll call. Teresa?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Ann?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll vote yes, so that'll go forward. We have no
Thank you.
old business. Capital plan update.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We'll start down in Cary. The permits are still, we're still waiting for permits for the earthwork and the interior construction of the new joint training center for the firearm training. So that's still out there. Cary is trying to push through that. They are right now saying it's the result of their consultants. The joint training center itself, renovation is moving along well. The roof is almost complete. Mechanical equipment's on site. Right now, it looks like the schedule will be, was originally given to be completed in October, and it looks like right now that will hold up and possibly in September completely. So that work is progressing well. Here at this campus, we have a contract in place for the replacement of window seals, entrance door systems at the government center. Submittals have come to us, and we've returned those submittals. We're waiting for lead time for that work. That once we have a schedule that shows when these parts will come in, we'll be able to update when we'll start and when we'll end that work. There's a couple of small projects that we're working on inside the building, one of which is some work to improve the security and some other amenities for the probation area. That's in design phase right now. That's basically the main driver is to try and make the area where their clients coming into the facility to meet with them, raise the security level in that area, and make accommodations for some of the changes in their workplace environment there. Additionally, Kathy Keefe has done some renovation work using the budget that she controls to make her walk-up counter more accessible to the clients, better ADA accessibility there, and to provide a better meeting areas for some of the client interactions of some of the people that are in that area to use. So that work is just about complete. The carpet is to go in next week. No work is there. We'll be wrapping that up. I think the end of next week we'll have a punch list and we'll be substantially complete with that. We have a contract in place for the new jail chiller. We're working on the mechanical specifications now. That'll go out to bid to have competitive bids to install that chiller that the county is in the process of purchasing now. That project we're targeting March of 2024 as the install date. That gets us out of working in the winter, and hopefully before we have a real call for a lot of cooling in the jail. So we've done that kind of a schedule in the past for chiller replacements. Typically it works out pretty well. We have a redundancy or a little bit of a contingency plan should that not go perfectly. But that's our goal right now, is to have that work being done next March and being operational in, say, the second week of April. Salt Dome, we can go out to the McDott property. We have 2 roofing projects underway. We have the office building roof. The rubber membrane is complete. Metal work, coping, flashings, etc. going in now. So that work is almost done. 24 roofers on site yesterday attacking the Salt Dome. We made a lot of progress.
Tom, I drove by, instead of coming through the city this morning, I won't now, and I drove by DOT, it looked like all the cars were parked
Yes.
out, away from the building.
They rocked it yesterday. They tore off the majority of the roof and worked till 8:30 last night. Got a large percentage of the shingles back on, so that work will wrap up. There's some other work associated with it besides the shingles, some repainting, some new corners, just basically refurbishing that salt dome so it'll last for another 25 years without touching it. And we move over to Valley High. We had talked about the sewage treatment pond last time, that there was a small liner that still was yet to be done. That work has been completed. The restoration of the site, seed blanket, fencing's gone back up. So that, we have a punch list item or two on the fencing. They were wanting to get back to Pennsylvania or back to New York in a bad way on that Friday. They could have spent a little more time on the fence, so we'll have to figure out how we're gonna get that to our specification. But it's complete, it's functional. Memory care wing for Valley High, that's out to bid right now. That went out yesterday. We spent some time working with purchasing to pre-qualify contractors rather than trying to qualify them on the back end publicly bid. Solicitation was put on. We had set requirements that we felt were necessary for the type of work that we're doing. Contractors that have successfully completed well-coordinated projects in a residential environment. So we went through, we received 4 contractors that were approved, met the specifications or qualifications that we asked for. So those 4 individual contractors will have these plans and specs. We have a pre-bid meeting next Tuesday or Wednesday, and bids will be returned on the 24th. County Board will see the project for approvals in June. And we have a couple of kind of smaller, in terms of dollars, projects going on. We are working on a greenhouse gas inventory right now, which is basically setting the stage for us goal setting. So where are we today? We know where we're at today in regards to the energy usage, because we have that information the last 12 years worth of our natural gas consumption, our electricity, where it is, how many therms, how many kWs we use per square foot per building. What we don't know is some of the other greenhouse gas emission. Mainly it's fuel spent by whom, where. That's going to be the next driver as far as where are we at and how do we get to our goal, which we'll need to establish. And then we have an electric vehicle site evaluation work going on as well. We held a kickoff meeting 2 weeks ago, met with a consultant that really works in this field to help us understand what buildings have what kind of electric capacity that can be utilized, what buildings don't, where would we go, can we use ComEd, what does ComEd say about coming right off poles, really just to get a high level overview of each of the facilities or areas that we believe will have fleets being converted over to electric in the next 10 years or so. So that, both of those projects have about a month, 1 month turnaround from today. So potentially the next meeting we'll have some results there, or we'll have more information. And that's where we're at.
So recognizing I'm saying this to you with kind of a tongue-in-cheek and it's not directed at you personally.
That's okay.
Going back to the very beginning. So you're telling me that the county collaboration project with this Village of Cary is being held up because we can't get permits from the Village of Cary?
Well, that's what I imply, yes.
That's what I hear you. So I'm looking and saying to everyone in the room, that's utterly ridiculous. I mean, whatever it is that needs to be done so that we can, assist in whatever way. At Law and Government, we had a very lengthy report from the sheriff about that they've already scheduled events in that facility. So, I mean, again, and we're dealing with another government that we know. I hear you, but I'm just saying, I think that's ridiculous. And somebody needs to get on the phone and tell the consultants that we have a timeline here.
Sure.
And that's why people don't like government.
I'm
'Cause
happy
that's
to
just,
do it.
that's just the, I'm serious. I just find that utterly incomprehensible, inconceivable. I just, sorry, I had to do that. But I just don't, and Peter, I know you want, so why?
I'm gonna have to get a little bit more information. I am going down to Village of Cary at 3:30 today for a meeting, so I can carry your
So
message.
tell my very favorite man that controls that I cannot tell him, I made a big deal out of it, I can't believe that. Knowing the time frame and knowing what needs to be done, that should be a priority on somebody's list. And
Agreed.
again, I'm not directing it.
Oh, sure, no, I understand. That's absolutely fair.
Just saying.
Any other things for capital plan? Thank you. HR, do you want to do yours first and then, okay.
Yeah. So, just a couple of things I just want to update you on. And what I'm handing out now is an exit interview report. So we had done, I'd given you a report about 9 months ago, and that report covered the previous 14 months. But this is an opportunity for us to look at it again. So what you see in the blue is actually numbers from from the previous report. So I just put that in there just so you could do some comparison. So it's broken down by department. So we'll just look at, for example, in assessments, the previous 14 months prior to this 9 months, there were 5 people who left. There was only 1 who left in this 9-month period. So then when you look over to the right, I just broke it out, what percentage was resignation, what percent were retirements, what percent were discharge, and what percent were other. And other really was people who passed away, just things that just didn't fit in the other category. So we did have, I think, 3 people pass away, employees in the previous report. Pardon me?
And you didn't get an exit interview?
I did get an exit interview. So really, I mean, you can look at the details of each department if you want to, but I think the most, if you flip to the back side, there's 2 things. Again, if you look at the very left-hand corner, it says in again, 2000, the 14 months prior, there were 215 people who left in the blue, which was about 15.35 people per month who left the organization. In black, this is the last 9 months, there were 119 people who left, which is about 13.22 people per month. So there's a little bit of a decrease of the number of people leaving the organization. The numbers underneath that again, how many people left because of money? So the blue, it says, the previous report, 19 or 8.84% left because of money. This last 9 months, 16 out of the 119 left, or 13.45% left for money. That's an increase. So I sat with my staff and I said, well, what do we think is going on? And they just said, well, Debbie, who does the exit interviews, she's like, they're going to non-government entities. They're going to the private sector and they're getting more money from the private sector. Our competitors are no longer other government entities, but they do have increased opportunities outside of the government, and so that's where they're going.
Yeah, I mean, everybody is experiencing that lack of individuals to hire, so we're all kind of stealing from each other, whether it's public or not.
Yeah. But again, she did say that they're not leaving to go to other government entities, because we are now comparable with other government entities. We're fairly comparable with most of government entities. We're still losing some to Lake County and DeKalb County, who just can offer more money. So some of them left from there. So if you go all the way over to the right, again, those final numbers, percent of people who resigned. Again, we had a 69% of people resigned in the previous report. This last 9 months was 64%. So we had less people resigning. We had less people retiring, again, 19.5% left in the past report. This one was only 15.97. I think we're doing a better job I think we can now afford to let incompetent employees go. So I think you're seeing some discharge numbers increase there, where before we were so desperate that we were holding on to what we had. I think we can start being a little pickier now. So I think we are seeing some people saying, no, but you gotta go. Just because you're not showing up, you gotta go. Where before it was like, just come when you can. So I think we're now seeing some increased discharge numbers. Again, were people who passed away. So I just wanted to give you an update on the exit interviews. Why are people leaving? What departments are they leaving in? What are the percentages? So that's just kind of a high picture that I'll go into. And if you want to look at the rest and ask me questions at another time, I will be happy to engage you in conversation on that. Otherwise, in HR, just want to give you an update on, I have a group of about 12 people who have been engaging in conversations about all of the HR-related strategic plan goals of the county board. They've met twice. They're meeting for a third time today. They're really kind of helping build out a framework of what that build out a framework of what that looks like and how we're going to make it happen. So it's been a very good group. But again, we have our final meeting today. We did have, I don't know if Pete shared with you, we did get an award. Even though it says McHenry County Top Workplaces, the Reader's Choice Award, voted 2022 one of the top municipalities to work in for McHenry County.
We did put that in the county email on Monday morning.
Yeah, so we did get that award. That was really nice. And I think before we'd already told you that we got the gold seal for mental health. So we've got some good things that are happening. We're getting ready to put out the spring employee survey, which again, a lot of the evolution of programs and benefits kind of comes out of that survey. I'll be putting that out probably within the next 2 weeks. Next week, the harassment and bullying annual trainings are going out, so I don't want to overwhelm people with, you got to do 2 trainings and a survey in 1 week, and that's just going to be too much. So next week is the harassment and bullying trainings are going out, and then I'll probably wait a week or so and then put out the spring survey. Once that spring survey results come in, Pete and Scott and I sit down and we look at it and we come up with what are the major topics that we still want to engage employees on, and we take it out into community forums, into the different locations in the county, and we engage employees in further conversation about issues that have come to the surface. So those will be things that will be happening in the next couple of months. I think that's a
Question.
Yes.
And this is going back to this. I noticed that a couple of the resignations were due to the COVID policy. What is the COVID policy here?
We follow the CDC. We follow the CDC. And there are several departments, where there are vaccine requirements. Valley High, in order to get their Medicaid funding, all of their staff has to be vaccinated. And then if employee says, I'm not going to do that, and they can't get any other kind of exemption, then they resign. Also, the health department has some restrictions on vaccines.
And I know it's a small number, but have we looked into our exposure to litigation, having a policy like that?
Yeah, I think we looked at it at length, and it was just the medical related positions. We did have an exemption protocol that we established with the guidance of the state's attorney's office on how to do that, and that process played itself out multiple times. Sometimes we granted an exemption, and a handful of cases we didn't.
Sometimes we moved people if they weren't eligible for the exemption that they applied for. We tried to find them a job somewhere else.
Okay.
So Scott and I do those exemption interviews with those employees.
Okay. And do you think that will continue?
As long as that Medicaid requirement says that you must be vaccinated, we're going to continue to hear those exemption requests
But only in those jobs where,
where it's required by federal law,
But
yeah.
I mean, it's not uncommon for healthcare workers to have to be vaccinated. There's vaccine requirements for hospitals.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
Yeah.
you say vaccine, I mean, it's very controversial.
it is, but like, I mean, the hospitals also have.
First responders.
Right, I mean, it's anyone, all medical personnel have these vaccine requirements.
Yep. We're following the law.
And I go back to the word vaccine means something, and this is not a vaccine, so that's all. I'm just saying, it's public information, it's not a big secret. So it needs to be brought up and discussed. I mean, we are exposing ourselves significantly, so, you know, you can say anything, but then 3, 5, 10 years down the road, we still have all the litigation expenses of people who now have repercussions. Unless, of course, they all die, then they're unlikely to have a bad exit interview. So, that's all.
I just have one question, Jeff.
Sure, go ahead.
On this sheet that you handed out.
Yes.
Under the notes section.
Yes.
Is this HR's notes or are these the employee notes?
No, this is kind of, I asked Debbie, who does our exit interviews, to just kind of give me, in a nutshell, why did they leave?
Of what they said?
Yes.
So the notes themselves
It's-
are
there's like-
reflective of HR's position, it's just the reason that they retired?
Correct, because it's a
Okay.
it's 4 pages of notes, and this just kind of says, you know, why did they leave?
And the only reason I bring that up is because I see one resignation in March of this year, if top of page, or on page 2, supervisor is toxic.
Yeah.
So I just wasn't sure if
So-
that's what
Yes.
the county determined, or if that's just
No,
what the
That's what the
employees.
employee reported.
That's a
and
quote.
It's, yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes we calm those down a little bit, and sometimes there's no way to calm that down. And I do have to meet with the supervisor and say, we need to talk. And I do meet with different department heads and say, what can I do to help you? Hold on to your employees. How do we work with this supervisor to get better?
Okay, all right, thank you.
Because there does seem to be a long list of resignations in the health end of this.
It's,
Yeah.
it's tough.
Health, yeah, they had 38 the previous time and 26 so far this time. Again, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they had several discharges. They had so.
I just
again,
have no idea what the
yeah,
turnover is in
I
health.
can-
High.
I mean, again,
It's high.
if you're
It's very high.
hiring and
I don't
And
understand.
the crop is not real good, and you're picking the best of the crop, and they just don't make it. So there's a high percentage of discharges, it looks like, in that one. Resignations. Moving, career change, going to DePage for more money, moving. couple of-
Sometimes moving is PC correct for, they weren't happy for other reasons,
Well, or they're leaving the state.
Yeah.
but, yeah, that could be it.
That happened a lot.
Okay, no problem.
But not
Yeah.
Thank you.
McHenry County.
All right,
It's
that's
nice
all I
to
have.
actually see
Thank you.
the breakdown, so you get an
Yeah,
idea
this
where the
is-
problems are at.
This is great. This is
Thank
great.
you.
It's all great.
Communication.
All right. So,
Since you didn't pull our agenda item.
yeah, I kind of had to say the wind taken a little bit out of my sails on that one because, you know, we've been working so hard on this communications strategic plan. And when I say we, I mean all of our colleagues who are comms officers across this county. So, I mean, we've been working with the health department, sheriff's office, emergency management, and state attorney's office's new communications officer, the IT department, and we all came together over a series of months to develop our strategic plan. So I'm just gonna flash it up quick, because you know what, I'm sorry, I know you guys already passed it. but-
Prove, Joe.
I was told by some people, they don't like it when they get pulled, but I now know, always pull your stuff.
Oh, no.
Always pull your
You
stuff.
want to defend, we did it.
Yes.
All right, well, I'll just throw up
She's
the front page, but I just do want to,
communicating.
I do want to highlight how
Yes.
we're already, also working on this plan as well. We're not just letting it sit on a shelf, we're hitting the ground running. So, without further ado, let me pull this up.
It's pulled up.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, if you look at the top.
Oh, it is? Oh, thanks, Dan. You're the best. Look at that, isn't it great? So anyhow, if you can see on the very front cover here, because we actually put a lot of thought in this was our campaign for Operation Greenlight for veterans, to bring awareness to the very valuable resources available to them, new benefits information, and the help that the BAC can provide. So again, we want to work harder going forward to collaborate more and help get out important county messaging. We're going to be increasing our focus on community engagement and outreach. We're also going to be working more collaboratively together in promoting the MCH brand. Also, we're going to be working more to increase our ability for emergency communication response and preparedness, and also additional training opportunities. To that point, our state's attorney's office has very graciously allowed us to have a training. They're actually going to put it on for us on June 7th for the McHenry County Communications Officers, so we can understand, best practices and ways to comply best with the law in regards to social media. And of course, I had to put on, the most dashing of our communications representatives on the strategic plan, because of course, we cannot do this without David Christensen. He did not object to his picture being on this plan. We're also going to be working on making sure that we can have the most representative communications possible and increasing our opportunities for continuing education. And of course, I know how much you love being on strategic plan, Scott. But of course, we're going to have an enhanced focus on best practices. So we're going to be working harder to improve ourselves every day, and that's what we're going to be doing. So that's our communication strategic plan, but I also wanted to bring up with you another campaign that's going to be coming up. And when I say campaign, I mean our newsletter. So every week for the past several years, since the pandemic began, we've been putting out a weekly newsletter called Resume McHenry County. On May 11th, though, the governor is taking the wind out of our sails and lifting all our executive orders. Now, that's a good thing. We've been waiting for this day. And we need to have an opportunity to rebrand this newsletter, because it receives a wide-ranging audience. 3,000 to 3,500 people open it every single week. And we provide strong information that the public clearly is engaged in. So we're going to have a new focus going forward with Resume. Not too terribly different from what it has been in the past. Because we don't want to focus anymore on sorry, lost my train of thought. Well, there's some voices going on in the background.
You don't want to focus in on
So
helping
if
you.
Resume name changing?
The name is changing. We're not going to be focusing on resuming anymore, because the pandemic restrictions have, in many cases, been lifted. We're going to try to focus on something. We're going to give the public something to strive toward. And the word that we're going to replace it with is thrive. We're going to give people opportunities to thrive. We're going to be focusing on educational opportunities for the workforce network. We're going to be focusing on opportunities to thrive in our various vibrant open spaces throughout naturally McHenry County, our festival opportunities, and also resources for businesses, so businesses can thrive as well. And so that's what is going to be coming up. We're going to have a debut on May 11th when everything lifts. And going forward, you'll see some great stuff to come.
Questions?
Names? Names, do you have names yet?
Names?
Well, instead of
She might be
resume.
thinking
we can
Thrive.
go-
Thrive.
Oh, thrive, thank you.
Instead of resume, it's going to be thrive.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Administrators report.
Oh, my turn, okay. I do have actually several things I wanted to note. We, working with Shaylin and the state's attorney's office, your county coordinator of the state's attorney's office, looking at body cameras. And I think I've mentioned this a little bit already, but in particular, our smaller municipalities who are not yet wearing body cameras, most of them aren't because they're not required to, but they are going to be required to in the not too distant future. So there's a lot of technical knowledge that is kind of associated with that, and data storage. So kind of working with that's why I'm going to carry this afternoon to work with Chief Pat Finland. He's chair of the McHenry County Police Chiefs Association, but talking with them about how we can maybe do some joint purchasing on data storage, and and making it a little bit easier for our smaller municipalities to meet their requirements for body cameras. So that's in our to-do list for the next year. I think we have, Pam, you raised the issue of the state's requirement for a decennial efficiency report. We're waiting to kind of kick that off in terms of working with some of our smaller governments. Municipalities don't have to do it, the county doesn't have to do it, but everybody else does. The Conservation District, which we all know is real professionally managed, and we're going to kind of wait. They're launching their program in June, but there's a requirement to put together a little task force and have 3 or 4 meetings and then generate a report that needs to come back to the county. So again, with the county coordinator, going to kind of help a lot of our smaller governments and districts to meet this requirement and maybe get the most out of this legislation. It's very broadly written, so to help these governments define their expectations, I think is going to be important. So this group.
Can I just ask one? School districts have to do it too, but they have a different requirement, correct? I just want to be clear on that, because it is all basically taxing bodies, but I do know school districts
we can also expect the school district are going to get a lot of guidance. They all have.
Right, but I'm just saying it's
and,
different. Don't assume that because they were mentioned, there are different requirements for school districts to meet for that reporting and what efficiencies they're looking for.
In the next couple months, I would anticipate Administrative Services Committee is going to be asked to enter into a contract, or if not enter into a contract, approve the results of a contract to increase our GIS fee. Our 6-person GIS department is funded 100% by this fee. This is a fee that goes on to any real estate transaction. I think right now it's $23. You can only increase it after you've done a third-party study, and that's what we need to get going. Adam's working with Nicole to kind of look at, who can do this. The costs of GIS, not surprisingly, continue to escalate. When we see the interest rates rise, we're seeing some fewer real estate transactions, not so much sales of property, but refinancing. It's stopped. But when there is refinancing, we do generate a fee. The fee hasn't been adjusted in 4 years, so we need to kind of take a look at that fee, and we'll be bringing that back in the coming months. That probably would go into effect December 1st or whatever date we pick, but it's time to adjust that, so we're making sure we have enough money. ESRI is kind of a monopoly on GIS, and their software contract expires, I think, at the end of September. We need to be able positioned to meet that. This also does pair with kind of our county goal of establishing a GIS consortium with our municipalities and having our public data more accessible and more readily used by our municipalities instead of them being on contract. So we'll go ahead on that. Another kind of exciting thing is the McHenry County Enterprise Zone. And previously it was just Harvard and Woodstock. We've now added Marengo and the 2390 interchange. And it's the Enterprise Zone Board has asked Adam to put out an RFP for zone administration services. The zone has been administered by one individual since its inception in 2016, and want to kind of see what else is out there in terms of zone administration services. It's certainly going to pair some with communications as well, because one of the things that while the enterprise zone has been successful, I think it's understood that we could do a better job of communicating it as a tool to businesses in the county or those that want to relocate into the county. So kind of pairing with our communication staff is going to be an important part of that. Wanted to update, I've told, I think several board members know, but I wanted you guys to know, it was like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I don't know, I went down to the Boone County Board and addressed them in an evening meeting. And they were considering the continuation of their special use permit that they granted to the solar farm. We have about 2,000 acres that's teed up to be a solar farm in the southeastern part of the county. They have about 200 acres. But the interconnect for the entire solar farm was to be located in Boone County. So it was kind of a big deal if they let that lapse, that we would have had to re-engineer things, and there was concern that they were going to let it lapse. There have been several new faces on that board since the special use permit was put in place, and preservation of farmland is a big political issue everywhere, but particularly in Boone County. So it failed at a committee level, and there was concern that it was going to fail at the county board level. I did go down and speak with them along with the solar farm folks, and kind of just talked about economic development and the importance of this for the development of that 90 corridor, and they did end up continuing the special use permit. That was good. Scott and I are going to go down and have lunch today with the Boone County administrator. We're going to meet down in Marengo. The Boone County did hire a new administrator a few months ago, so we did get a relationship going with her. We talked about fiber a little bit already this morning. I am excited to report that we have 3 applications that met the first deadline for phase 3 of Connect Illinois. 2 were put forward by Comcast and the 3rd by Frontier, and it covers just about everything that isn't covered now. I mean, it's the entire western half of the county and the north central part of the county, northeast. So we're keeping our fingers crossed on that, but I think those guys are well positioned. There's going to be 10 rounds of applications. The first round was had to be in by April 30th, and then the next round is in by the end of June. So it's going to be rolling in approvals, but there's just so much federal money flowing through the state to fiber. So it's going to be a big deal for us. It's just, I think it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and partnering with these private firms is going to be important.
So you said there's going to be 10 rounds of applications. Are those just for each specific portion of the project, each application, or is it just you said 3 applied.
There's 3.
Is it just those 3 that are going to be applying for all 10 rounds?
No.
Okay.
You only have to apply once.
Okay.
They'll be considered 10 times.
Okay.
Each, if they aren't approved in the first round, they'll be considered in the second round, and then they'll be considered in the third round. The state is being they're exercising some discretion about where these approvals are taking place, right?
Okay.
And which there's undoubtedly lobbying going on by these private carriers.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I think we've reported earlier in the year that we partnered with NIU's Masters of Public Administration program to do some studies of some of our programs. And we did receive the results of 2 such studies, I think last week. We had master's students kind of write end of semester papers for us on studying how to evaluate our county coordinator position and how to evaluate our public safety social worker position. So I've gotten through the county coordinator position. Each paper is like 25 pages, so there's a lot to digest. But we got through the county coordinator position, be reviewing that with Shaylin, and I have not yet gotten through the public safety social worker, but it's good to get another set of eyes on how we can best evaluate our success on these programs.
And how many people, or how many papers were written, roughly?
We submitted 2 projects for the county. This is part of the NIU MPA graduate curriculum. The students have to identify what's called a capstone paper. And we submitted 5 possibilities for the county. 2 were selected by the students. I'm not sure in total how many were written across the district.
I think they typically have about 25 graduates a semester, so we had 4 of them working on them, so
Yeah, I
did a
mean,
good jump.
really appreciate their interest in these projects.
Yesterday at Planning, Environment, and Development, we approved an agreement with Soil and Water Conservation District to continue doing our, part of our process in evaluating farm tiles and such. That was important. It had been kind of delayed, but I think we've gotten through some of how we're going to be communicating with the ag community on that and the Farm Bureau. I raised that because it's important, but I also raised it because we are going to have the Soil and Water Conservation District address the board at the June committee of the whole meeting. We wanted to get over this hump of getting the contract done in May, but they're going to come and address the board in June just about their role, the assistance they do provide, and you know, I guess just that's it. What value are they adding to the community in meeting state and federal requirements on insurance and everything else? So they'll be doing a brief presentation in June. The last thing I was going to note, we had at Public Health and Community Services Committee, and we'll have at Finance tomorrow, the addition of a new grant-funded position in the nursing division. It was not on your agenda today. I think it reads that it was, you know, it was going to be on the Administrative Services agenda. I don't often like to have 3 committees review one resolution, in particular when it's grant funded. So I don't know. I don't recall not including it, but I may have made that decision. But I wanted you to know it's there, and we're going to have to make that amendment when it goes to Finance tomorrow that it was not reviewed by this committee.
But public health did.
Public Health did
Yeah.
and Finance will,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's entirely grant funded, and if the
Yeah.
grant goes away, the position goes away.
It didn't need to be here, I agree. There's no reason to take the 3 committees.
The 3 committees is a lot, right? I think that's all I have.
Okay. Any questions?
Just one question.
Sure.
So for the municipalities and the body cam, I guess cloud storage requirement, how much, I mean, we don't, when the county engages in a contract like that, they're not getting charged per municipality, right? It's just a data amount that we're purchasing
So
or leasing?
we aren't there yet in terms of how this will be.
Well, but the county itself already presumably has some sort of data storage for the sheriff's
We have
department.
one for the sheriff's office, and the state's attorney needs to access all that data when doing prosecutions.
Right.
And it's that interrelationship that we are looking to explore and get some cost savings, because if, by 2025, I think Hebron is going to have body cameras, and occasionally their data is going to need to be downloaded to the state's attorney's office, so the state's attorney's office can do criminal prosecutions. There ought to be a way that there could be an umbrella contract that we can realize some savings for Hebron, some savings for Hebron.
No, and I guess that was the point I was trying to make, is if these are truly just the smaller municipalities, how much more could it really be for the county to absorb that cost?
We don't know yet.
We don't know.
And that's a policy question, I don't know how much savings we're going to be able to realize. These guys, they kind of have us, they know that we have to do this, but there are competitors, and we're seeing what Lake County is doing, and Washington, we're seeing what DuPage County is doing. They are ahead of us in their state's attorney's office. We have a presentation next week from a competitor to the firm that we are using right now in the state's attorney's office. And we have another meeting on the 24th.
And just from my perspective, Eric, I think we have to be careful just from a general policy, because, why would Pam Altoff from McHenry, who is paying both McHenry and McHenry County taxes, want my taxes from McHenry County to provide the same services I'm receiving and paying for, and yet they're getting it free?
And this is camera-centric, though. It is, because some of the stuff is provided with purchase of certain cameras, and some are not.
Correct.
And I believe the more municipalities that are pushed, have to do this, even the camera companies themselves are gonna have to get more competitive and maybe provide more what Axiom and these other ones are doing. So this is very much in flux until
Yeah.
this actually
It's
comes.
very well stated. It's very much in flux, and we've seen the bigger municipality be forced out, and so they've already made investments, with whether leasing or purchasing equipment, and that equipment directly ties into how the state's attorney is connecting with them.
Right.
Well, and I guess one of my points is, and maybe I'm wrong, but I just assumed the larger cost is the data storage. And if we have to expand our data storage, and it's truly just the smaller municipalities, I can't imagine it would be that much additional. State's attorney is gonna need it anyway for any prosecutions. And then frankly, like, I think I can envision a scenario where the smaller municipalities just say, you know, forget this is too expensive, we can't afford this, and they just, I think it's within the realm of possibility that they just disband their police departments, just depending on the size of the municipality, which just then puts a greater burden on the county sheriff anyway, so. That's the only thing I was
Reason
thinking.
why Ringwood doesn't have a police department.
I recognize that. Oh, and it's also pension costs too, but I agree. I think it's in flux. I think we need to be aware of it. I'm just, from a broader perspective, I
And I'm
just
not-
think
I'm
we
not
have to be careful
It's
about.
just too
Oh, and I'm
early
not
to
saying-
debate, there's too many things.
And I'm not saying I'm in favor of it, but.
We have to, I think, I have this vision of like looking out, right? We have a contract with a firm now, but what is, even as that contract matures, what is
Yeah.
the next
Then the
contract?
next one will be even more competitive.
What does the next one look like?
Wow.
right?
And I would assume that we're going to talk about this in shared services too, right? I mean, so there'll be another forum to talk to other municipalities and other entities to see
When
where
I
the cost
was in law
savings are.
enforcement, the Sam Brown was the only belt we could wear for firearms and the only thing that anybody had. There was one location in our entire town and area in St. Louis to buy that, and that is the only place you could go to buy your equipment and do it and repair your equipment. Today,
Not so
law
much.
enforcement uses all kinds of gear everywhere. There's lots of startup companies, even some in our county and just outside of our county that provide those services. So I think the competitiveness, the natural competitiveness will actually help those costs down the road.
All right, we do have executive session today, folks. I need a motion to go in for personnel.
Moved.
By Pam.
Second.
Second by Terry. All those, actually, we do have to do roll call. Teresa?
Yes.
Pam?
Well, yeah.
Eric?
Yes.
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Pam? And I'll vote yes.
Aye.
Okay. I know we have to turn something on or open the door or something, but
What I'd like to do,
I doubt there's anybody here, but.
I did have, once I get a chance to review this and see what suggestions are for goals, I did have a list of goals that I kind of proposed last month, so I'd like to refine this and bring it to you next month and get these
That'd be
signed
great.
off on.
That'd be great.
Can I have a motion? Well, we're back in session. Roll call. Teresa, Matt, Eric, Terry, Pam, and myself are still here. We have a quorum.
Any future topics? We skipped it.
Well, I don't think we have any future topics other than we're gonna continue to work on,
Well,
do we have any other
There it
future
is.
topics you'd
Yeah, I
like to
did.
put on?
I wanted to ask you, and I hope that this is an appropriate question for new business, but for clarification. In the strategic plan, under the leadership and governance section, number 4, create and implement a program evaluation process to determine program effectiveness, efficiency, and potential cost savings. And my understanding is that that is supposed to be done at the standing committee level for the 7 committees, but is that ball rolling? I don't hear anything about it.
I haven't
Yes.
heard any.
And,
Good question.
oh,
Thank you.
we're administration, so I
We-
thought maybe.
We have about a half dozen programs that we're looking at. What we're looking at, what we've kind of defined is a program as something that we're doing that we don't have to do,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So what are some things that we as a county
That we're
government
not
are doing that we don't
mandated,
have to be doing?
not
We
legislative.
have 2 or 3 that we're going to be bringing through Transportation Committee. We have some programs there that we have a lot of good data on that we're doing. I referenced earlier in this meeting, looking at how are we evaluating the public safety social worker program. That was what we kind of asked NIU for some third-party outside set eyes. How would you evaluate success there? Similarly with the county coordinator position. So that was our stepping off point on this is something we're spending money on. We're
Right.
spending, and how are we measuring success with that position?
And why? Well, so here is my thought. Since we're at administration, if they're, like, for example, does each committee understand what are the optional programs that are under their purview that they would be reviewing over some time frame? Just to have some kind of a framework for this. And then, since we're administration, wouldn't we be the ones to say, is everybody actually looking at this?
We have our turf too, but we
Well,
should
right, we
probably
have our
look and
turf
say,
too,
what are the
but-
ones specifically we should be looking at?
Well, exactly, but where's the accountability for the other committees if it's not? I don't know.
Well, but like transportation, I don't know, I'm not on transportation, but I'm assuming that there are some shared services that we don't. I know for a long time, for instance, for a township to get bridge money, they have to have the county engineer sign off on it, and then the federal government will give them an 80% of the money to fix a bridge. And
Well,
so.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, just to, so who has oversight on the strategic plan to make sure that that the different committees, that SC is the only one on that, list? And so is there somebody that's just saying, okay, here are the things that are,
I think it'd be a good list to find out which things are mandated and which aren't. I
Right.
don't know if any such list exists.
So I accept this recommendation and challenge. Well,
Okay.
next month we can kind of, Shaylin, Scott, Alicia, we're kind of a 4-person team in looking at what are some of these programs we're doing that we don't have to do and getting some evaluation. As I said, we got about 6 or 7 that are in the hopper that we're working to roll out over the summer to kind of present how we're evaluating those. That's specific to that item in the strategic plan. The entire plan, we update every month. Every month there's a report card with pieces that change, and we can kind of bring that back as soon as next month and kind of show you how that evolves and the work that's done there.
I just think that.
I think she's asking for, and I don't mean to put words in her mouth, but I think she's asking more for the big picture
Yeah.
to say, which ones are we doing because we want to and which ones are we doing because we have to? where's that dividing line? And I don't know that, I mean, I know I've never seen a list.
It's murky.
It's
And it
like
really,
what
I mean,
Matt was saying.
Let's start with me. There's 102 counties in the state. There's only about 25 county administrators.
Right, but you're really good.
No, but you don't have to have this position.
Well, okay, but I think.
You don't have to have an HR director.
It's not talking about org chart, it is talking about pros. And I think like what Matt was saying, you know, you come into a board and it's kind of like slicing off the ends of the ham. Well, that's the way we've always done it. Oh, why? Because grandma's ham wouldn't fit in her oven. You know, and so things can get dated or whatever, and then they're assumed to be mandated or legislative, when actually not. And when we're looking at things that we really care about, and then we say, oh, that's something that's just not relevant, or we don't want to do, our constituents have no interest or value from that, but then that could be reallocated in another way.
And
So-
anybody who's ever got a call from me, the first thing I say is, do we have to do this? That's exactly what I say. It's kind of hard to know.
And I think you're getting into the weeds about counties and you. That can be a later. I think what we need to do is keep it tight to start with, and what are we doing that we don't have to? I mean, the
What
communications, I would
programs
say
are out?
communications is one of those things. You know, do we have to do it? I would say yes, but no, we don't, right? We don't.
But there's
So
value.
what,
Huge
so,
value.
but that's what we need to evaluate. Huge
Things like-
value
Things
when
like
we
the water
see.
resource program.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
The whole, the position of our water resource manager and the water resource action plan, you know, that would be an example of something that we don't have to do.
Well, and I think my overall concern are weird hidden things that people don't know about, and somebody's off, you know, doing something and we're all oblivious, so.
I'm gonna think about that, you know, as we roll into July and August, every office and department will be in front of one of these standing committees and presenting their budget, and maybe that's an opportunity to kind
I
of
was
shine a
thinking
little bit of
about
light
that.
on items that are optional.
And, yeah, even on like the resolutions, just putting, I know there's always like the, you know, page 2, page 3 blurb of, you know, is this in conformance with the strategic plan? Just even something that says, you know, state mandated or not state mandated would be, I think, informative going forward, but that's just me.
Thank you.
Aye. So future topics is, you're gonna find a list. Good luck.
But again, maybe not to the full board, but maybe minimally to the administrative services, an update on the strategic
That'd be
plan
great.
evolution, and you can do it maybe to the board quarterly or something, but I think this committee specifically should see something on a regular basis.
Even semi-annually, I'd be fine.
To the
with.
board, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, again, this committee should have its finger on that.
Okay. All right, I need a motion to approve but not release the executive session minutes with the changing the one typo. By Teresa, is there a second? By
Terry.
Terry.
Two forms.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved. I'm ready for a motion to adjourn unless you guys have something else. By Terry, second by Matt, all those in favor?
Aye.